Hi there, my name is Brianna Rodriguez, and I'm going to be talking about my website on functions, my unit plan. So let's go ahead and get started. Um, this is the home page of my functions, and I named my website Functions Rule because I didn't have anything else to name it. I couldn't think of anything. And of course, functions do rule because I feel like students need to have a very good understanding of functions in order for them to move on in mathematics. So as you can see here, this is the home page. This is uh, this subject is more for Algebra 1 students, grade level 9 to 10. But, with high school, it's hard to decide because, you could have seniors in Algebra 1, you could have juniors in Algebra 1. It just honestly depends on the person itself. But it's generally for grade 9 to 10. In this unit, just to give you a brief little summary, what I want the students to know is how to determine if it is a function or not using the vertical or horizontal line test. Be able to identify the vertex, the max and min, the x and y intercept, and so on and so forth. And then also determine the domain and range. Which here's a little example of a domain and range function that we could use. And then here are the California Content Standards. Basically, this unit summary is exactly what this is. This just adds maybe the inverse function, knowing how to do the inverse function, and that's pretty much it. For the big ideas that I have for this unit, I want the students to know the common characteristics that is seen with the function and to be able to understand the concept of functions being used in the real world. The concepts being used in the real world is really important. It's not just for for the math class, it's more for everyday use as well. And that's really what I'm going to be harping on this entire section, is that it's used in the real world. The students, for the student learning objectives, they will need to understand how to calculate the domain and range, interpret and understand the graphs and how to be able to read them, and then to understand how they're used in the real world. And then right here is my link to my home website for my teaching website there. Let's go ahead and go to the first tab here, the assignments. So in this one here, this is just like a brief overview of all the assignments that we're kind of going to be, running down over inside the classroom and outside the classroom. So you'll have the entry level ones, which is the group discussion, the formative, which is the flashcards, the quiz, the jigsaw, and the super tic-tac-toe. Jigsaw and super tic-tac-toe are things I've seen before, but I've never really had the chance to use them in a bigger group. And basically, they're things that help the students understand and are able to learn better from it. And then the summative here, we're going to have KWL and 321, which are things that we would do at the end, more towards the end, more towards, the time that we take a test on this stuff. And those are just things that will help the students understand the concept itself and things that they need to work on as well. Here is one of the assignments that I made, well, the rubrics for the assignment, I should say. This is a concept for the students to understand what they really need to work on and what they don't need to study for a test. 321 is basically 3 things they know, 2 things they don't know, and 1 possible test question that they think is going to be on the test, which I think this activity is a really good resource for the teacher as well as the students to know what you need to work on more as a teacher when it comes to that section. And then I made a quiz here on Kahoot. Clicking this link here will only get us to the home screen of Kahoot and won't actually have us go to the actual assignment unless you're on your cell phone. So if you want to go ahead and review that by clicking it, that is totally up to you. It's open for the public, I believe. If it's not, just let me know. So for lesson 1 here, if we brought in this here, this is just on how to graph things, making charts of how to graph, picking 5 values that are crucial for it, which are usually -2, -1, 0, 1, 2. like said here, and then how to take this chart and actually plot it onto the graph. That is really what this assignment is. These examples down here where they're supposed to graph it are all examples from up here from number 1 to 4. So they're taking these charts here and actually understanding how to graph it down here. And that's something important for functions. So lesson 2 here, this is basically a Weber size where they have to take these links here and, you know, find the answers inside each of the web pages that there are here. So on this first page that I had here, you would have, wrong one. You would have like, what is a function, f of x equals, and, you know, things like that. And like writing the sentence below. This is all examples like from here. So like writing this thing here into that question was what I was going for here. So knowing what a parent graph is, and then knowing the actual definitions of each graph is going to be important for quizzes in my class. Moving on to lesson 3 here. Lesson 3 here is going to be a graphic organizer, which I personally love the setup that I did for it. Each of these numbers here corresponds with a box. So box number 1, you're going to have to choose choose a function at all. Doesn't matter what function, as long as it's not a parent function. And then I also listed some of the examples that they could use. Some examples that they can use, like a polynomial function, linear function, quadratic function, cubic, exponential, so on and so forth. As long as it's not the parent function, then I'm cool with them using it. They can take that function and type it into Google and find a random function that they can use for these next ones here. Also in the box, they need to explain the function and the name of the function. So let's say they use a quadratic equation. They need to explain the type of function and then say it's a quadratic equation. In the second box here, they're going to sketch the parent graph of the function. They need to make sure to identify what the parent graph is. In the third box, they are going to do any type of work they need to do in order to get to the graph. So they need to identify the vertex, the x-intercept, y-intercept, slope, axis of symmetry, anything that is needed for the graph or anything that I test on, they need to have in that box. Neatly labeled and worked out for me to see. In box 4, they need to graph it. In box 5, they need to state the domain and range. Also in step 4, they need to label all the points that are graphed. And then in step 6, I want them to describe the description between box number 2 and box number 4. So basically saying what's different between the parent graph and the function they chose. So here is the boxes that they have. And then here's the example I used for it. F of x equals x squared plus 4. The name of a function above is a parabola. There is the parent graph here. There's all the things that I worked out here, which you really only need the vertex and the table here for this one. And then here's the graph, and it's labeled neatly. It's all neatly done. Here is the domain, and here's the range of it. And then here is why it's different from the parent graph. And then here is the details of how I'm going to be grading it. This is an assignment worth 20 points. Each box is worth a different amount. Box 1, 2, 5, and 6 are worth 3 points. Box 4 and 3 are worth 4 points because of how much more work they are compared to the rest of the boxes. And as you can see, if they have nothing at all, they get no credit. They get half credit for not having proper notation or giving the function name. Just little things that I think are important in order for them to get full credit are what's going to take off for half credit. And then moving on to the useful resources. Here are some resources that the students can use in order to help them with their project here. This video here is a video on what is a function and it describes what a function is and what it does. And then these notes here, these are very useful in order for them to understand what a function is, what a function is, like a working function. It also gives you the definition of domain and range, and it also gives you examples and solutions for them to be able to check their work as they go along. This video here is a description of how to use Desmos, and using Desmos is important because if they don't understand how to graph something, they can just type it into Desmos and it will be graphed for them. These two things are just helping you identify functions and decide if they are functions or not. These are very helpful in order for them to get a more understanding of how to identify them. And then from here on, it's going to be more of how to use these in real life. So for this video is using functions in real life, giving an example of it. This link down here of why do I care gives an explanation, reasons of why functions are important in everyday life. And then here's a presentation on, how it relates to the real world. And then the last link here is extra help for anything that the students need. And I believe it's like a free little tutor or like if they don't understand what f of x means or evaluate, gives examples of it, what a one-on-one function is. And so this is the website that I feel will be most useful for the students when they're going through this unit themselves. If you have any questions, feel free to message me through the messages on here, and I will be glad to answer any of your questions, comments, or concerns. Thank you so much for your time. Have a wonderful evening, you guys.